the college football big show. My name is Nick. I'm going to be your host today, presented by the Sportscast. Today's date is January 10th, 2021. Calling in from Austin, Texas. A warm 34 degrees here today. It's actually snowing right now. So if you can believe that, it's pretty crazy here. If you have not yet, please subscribe on all your channels, all our channels, YouTube, Periscope, and Apple Podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and a review. It helps us out tremendously. And also visit us on thesportscast.net. Also follow us on Twitter at thesportscast1 and check out our app, The Sportscast, in the iOS App Store. Joined by an awesome cast here today, starting with our guy, Chris. Chris is a writer for the West Coast College Football and co-host of the Southern Gentleman Sports Show on the Ticket, 8:50 a.m. in Pensacola, Florida. Ty Turner, host of the Tyler Turner Show here on the Sportscast every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern. And Justin Riley, co-host of the Riley and Constance Show on the Sportscast that you can catch here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Gentlemen, we are here to discuss the College Football Playoff National Championship. We're going to do some debating. We're going to analyze the two teams. Obviously, the Alabama Crimson Tide will be taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens. Kickoff is set for tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we also have Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit on the Gamecast with obviously Maria Taylor for ESPN working the sidelines. Couple of quick stats before we jump into anything here, guys. Bama currently sits as an 8.5 point favorite on the Vegas line. I have seen the line shift just a little bit, going as low as maybe 7.5, I think, going back up to 8.5. So fluctuating between a point and a half there. From Bama's perspective, this is their 8th appearance in the national title game since Nick Saban's arrival in 2007. So that would be 8 national title appearances in the last 14 years. Obviously, Nick Saban is going for seeking, I should say, his 7th national title in his career, 6th with the Alabama Crimson Tide, which would pass legendary coach Paul Bear Bryant, both with the school record of most national championships as a college football head coach at the University of Alabama and as college football as a whole, which is pretty crazy just to think about. Bama's seeking its 3rd title in the last 7 years and its 18th national title overall in the program's history. Currently sitting at 6-3 in the playoff. They're looking at their next playoff appearance here against the Ohio State Buckeyes. OSU's first title appearance since the 2014 national championship, head coached by Urban Meyer. I was just thinking about this earlier when I was doing some research on this conversation that I can't believe Cardale Jones was the quarterback for that team. It's crazy to think about that. But obviously stars like Ezekiel Elliott as well. It's their first appearance under new head coach Ryan Day. And OSU currently stands as 2-2 in the college football playoff appearances and is seeking its 9th national title in program history. Guys, before we get into any debates, I want to take a step back for a second and think about how we got here and that we actually have made it to the end of the college football season. Thinking back to, let's say, 6 months ago, July, we were dealing with conferences canceling their entire schedules, players opting out. Obviously, this has been a crazy year with COVID and all of these different external circumstances. So I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we got here and all the credit to all the commissioners in the college football, getting through the seasons. Now, I know there's a lot of debate about, the Big Ten and Ohio State schedule and all of that stuff. But I really think that every conference, every, personnel, staffing, medical departments of any programs have really, really done a great job to give us, this final national championship game. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out before we jump into any analysis of the game there. But now that we kind of got that out of the way, I want to talk about first keys to success. And I want to start with Ty here, starting with OSU. Give me your perspective on what are the keys to success for Ohio State in this game?
I say, first off, what I think is, number one, I hope that Justin Fields is healthy. Obviously, a healthy Justin Fields is kind of, I think, really the key to this ship for Ohio State. Obviously, he seemed to get banged up a little bit in the last game when he took that hard hit from the Clemson linebacker. He seemed to play fine. I forgot his shots in the last game, so hopefully he's gonna be healthy. That's number one. Number two, I think when it comes offensively, to be able to get explosive plays down the field like they did against Clemson, get the balls to guys like Chris Olave, get the ball to Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, Adegbo. They have big time, one of the best wide receiver groups in the country. So being able to get the ball down the field and make explosive plays. And then defensively, I really do think the biggest key to stopping – they're not going to stop Alabama. Alabama is one of the best offenses that has ever been in college football. But what they can do is slow them down. And I think the key to that is getting after the quarterback. You saw last game against Clemson, they really did a great job of getting after Trevor Lawrence. And that really was their ability to get off the edge, get some pressure through the middle. And I think guys like Tommy Togai, I heard he might be out due to COVID, but he's had a big game. Haskell Garrett, Tyreek Smith, forgot the guy's first name, but Cooper, Zach Harrison. They have guys that are elite prospects coming out of high school, have elite level talent, probably will be in the NFL. So they have the ability, probably more so than anyone else that Alabama has played recently, to match up maybe enough on the offense, on the defensive side of the ball when it comes to the front seven, and their ability to pressure Mac Jones, get him off his platform, make him uncomfortable, make him have some errant throws. And I think that'll be the key to what Ohio State can do defensively to slow down Alabama just a little bit. And then, like I said, offensively, a healthy Justin Fields making explosive plays down the field to the elite wide receiver group that he has available to him.
Yeah, all great points, and something that you brought up in the beginning of your analysis is that I think everybody here agrees that this is going to be a shootout. This is going to be a back and forth kind of game like that in terms of trading offensive points. But to Chris, to go into you now, what are some things that you think Ohio State can do to limit Bama's offense? Not, as Ty said, I don't think there's going to be an opportunity there to stop them completely. But what are some things that Ohio State can from the defensive side of the ball to limit Alabama's success?
Wow. I know that we're slaves to the moment sometimes, and looking about last year, everyone said LSU's offense might have been the best ever. Here we are a year later, and you're saying the same thing about Alabama. And I have to agree. This is the greatest collection of pure athletes on offense that I think we've seen in a really long time. And I say that as someone who watched early 2000 Miami Hurricanes several times and other teams like that. So to stop them, I mean, looking at how teams approached Alabama throughout their all SEC season, look at what Arkansas did, just drop 8, try to rush 3. Yeah, you limit Mac to, season low passing total, but I mean, they got the guys, and the way that Sarkisian moved Harris around like in the SEC title game, I just think that leaves you open to so much more ways that Alabama can attack you. So it's going to be hard. I think I agree with you. It's going to be a shootout. And one thing that we haven't brought up yet is the fact that Sarkisian has taken that Texas job. And anytime an offensive coordinator takes a job like that before a game like this, I think back to Mark Richt leaving Florida State or accepting the Oklahoma or Georgia job before that national championship against Oklahoma. You don't know how many distractions have been in Sark's week, disrupting his daily routine. And that could come into play. You just don't know. I was at the 2016 Peach Bowl when Kiff was out the door, and you saw how dysfunctional Alabama looked on offense in that game. So I think there's a couple other factors to go along with all the other COVID procedures that make this a little different national championship game end of the season. But Ohio State's definitely got their hands full trying to slow these guys down.
Yeah, great point there, Chris. My only and you're exactly right with Kiffin and great point there bringing up Mark Richt. The only other flip side to that is the 2015 national championship game against Clemson. I know that Kirby Smart had accepted the UGA job in between the playoff game and that first kind of real big stage game against Clemson. And now I know Bama gave up 40 points in that game, but still got the win there. So hopefully, from at least Bama's perspective, not too much clout there from Sarkisian in terms of being able to focus on his needs to get done right now. And I think that really said a lot about, not just leaving when he accepted the Texas job roughly a week ago, saying that he was going to stay on, that he was going to, finish the job here at UA. So I thought that was something that hopefully won't play too much into this game. Justin, I wanted to ask you specifically about Bama and Bama's offense here. In my opinion, Ohio State's defense, yes, recency bias, the game against Clemson was tremendous, right? That they played unbelievable. That front seven was giving Trevor Lawrence fits all night long. Their Sean Wade really, I thought, had his best game of the season. But before that, in the small sample size of the 6 regular season games, Ohio State's defense was not what it typically was, specifically from the secondary standpoint. I'm thinking about the Indiana game. I'm thinking about the game against Northwestern, where they were really challenged with the deep ball. And that was something that they really struggled with, in my opinion. So tell me a little bit about how Bama's going to try to attack that. And if you think, this is something that Mac and company is going to struggle with.
I don't feel like they're going to struggle with it because no one really, with the exception of Arkansas, has really stopped. Well, I don't want to use the word stop because no one stopped them, but limit them. Arkansas was able to take away the deep throw, but then that left the small the check downs and the small routes open, and then Mac was able to be effective that way. I feel like Ohio State's weakness on that defense is the secondary. What I really am looking at is the battle up front. This is probably one of the better defensive lines that our offensive line will go against. And I'm curious to see how we're going to respond without Landon Dickerson in this game. A little different situation going up against Ohio State's defensive line than Notre Dame's. We were able to do pretty well, establishing run, pass block in this past game. But I'm really interested to see if there's going to be any kind of drop-off going against a better defensive front. Alabama's just got to continue to play its game and don't try to go outside of that. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't get caught up in trying to get Jalen Waddle out there and try to, force him into something or trying to build your offense around that. Do what's got you here thus far. Don't deviate and just let the game come to you. Another thing with a situation like this, as good as their defense, Ohio State, that is I think Mac Jones just needs to let the game come to him. I know there's been several situations where he can get frustrated and he'll just start slinging balls places where he probably shouldn't sling them just because he wants that big play. He wants that big moment. He just needs to let things calm down and let it come to him. Honestly, I see Ohio State having a tough time trying to account for our 3-headed monster, Mac, Devontae, and then Najee. And then now we got Billingsley, who could be a possible 4th option. So I'm just kind of curious to see the battles up front in this game. Ohio State's offensive line, they actually have given up 20 sacks in the past 7 games. So there's that. This is a great opportunity for Christian Barmore to live up to his billing and to eat, as well as Will Anderson. We need to get pressure up front. We don't need to allow Justin Fields to get any easy plays, and we need to have somebody who's going to spy and hold him accountable the entire game. But I really want to see pressure up front from our defensive line this game.
Yeah, Justin, all great points there. A couple of things that I wanted to highlight as well is like you mentioned, Alabama's offensive line. Chris Owens coming in to fill that spot for Landon Dickerson. Like you said, I think he did struggle a bit against Notre Dame's front seven, and it's only going to get tougher here with Ohio State. In my opinion, this game is really going to come down to, as you just said, winning the battle in the trenches. Offensive line versus defensive line, and obviously, Bama's offensive line winning the Joe Moore Award, I believe, for the best offensive line in the country. But they're really going to be tested on Monday night, and so that's going to be an interesting dynamic there from that perspective. You talked about some of the weapons from Bama's side of things as well. One being Billingsley, that I think is a really interesting matchup. I did want to mention actually Ohio State's tight end. Jeremy Ruckert. A fun stat about him is he actually only has 12 catches on the season, and 5 of them are for touchdowns. He had 2 against the game in Clemson, against Clemson last week. So I'm going to be really interested to see how Ohio State uses a threat like that, because obviously we know about the wide receiver talent with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson on the other side as well. So Chris, I wanted you to talk to me a little bit about that secondary play from Bama, particularly with guys like Josh Jobe, guys like obviously Patrick Surtain. Justin, I don't know if you saw the report today earlier, but Malachi Moore is definitely questionable for this game. So Chris, I'm interested to see, Bama's secondary has also been questionable throughout this year. What are some things that they can do to limit the success of Ohio State's talent at wide receiver?
Wow, that's going to be hard, especially if they've got guys that are, not up to full speed. But Surtain's been awesome. That's been the known commodity in that secondary. So, you mentioned what Ohio State, kind of kept Rucker hidden throughout their season, and then all of a sudden he's catching touchdowns against Clemson. That's kind of what I'd be worried about, these wrinkles that Ohio State's going to throw at this secondary. And with the amount of weapons they have at wide receiver, and now they're utilizing the tight end, that's really what I'd be concerned about if I'm an Alabama, defensive coordinator, looking at Ohio State coming out with those kind of wrinkles that they haven't shown up until recently. Obviously, Sermon's just caught fire the last 2 games, so if he gets, and he's broken a lot of tackles too. So if he gets into that secondary, while these other wide receivers are taking the DBs further down the field, got to come back up and make those tackles, or else Sermon could be, scorching down the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ty, I would love to hear your talking points about Sermon, about his success. I saw an interesting article the other day that was comparing Sermon's kind of run here in the last 3 games to what Ezekiel Elliott did actually back in the 2014 playoff, where he had an outstanding Big Ten Big Ten championship game, had an outstanding playoff game, obviously against Alabama, and then in the title game against Oregon. Talk to me a little bit about Trey Sermon. He transferred from Oklahoma. What took him so long to kind of get running, or for not a coincidence there, but and get him up to speed, and why is he such a weapon now for this Ohio State offense?
Definitely when it came to Ohio State, and this can maybe even answer a little bit the question about their defense and in regards to how Trey Sermons and how the offensive line played for the first couple of games. It was just a tough year in the Big Ten and Pac-12 because of how they postponed the season. They then basically had a month of protesting, trying to get back in the field, and then they finally were able to. And then not only when after they got on the field did they start having COVID cancellations. That just does a lot with timing from all aspects of your defense, your offense, receivers, running backs, offensive line. So I think part of the problem, specifically to answer your question, I just think that there was just some timing going on as far as the unit blocking up front for Ohio State, which was not enabling quite as much allowance, as big enough holes for Sermon to run through. Sermon is pretty much a guy that's kind of a slasher runner. He hits the hole, hits it at full speed, and gets there. If the hole's not there, he's not a guy that's going to bounce and knock a bunch of, he's a guy that if there's a hole there, he's going to hit it at full speed. He's going to get downhill. That is his running style. So it makes sense that the offensive line is not in complete synchronization, that he probably would struggle a little more. Now that the offensive line, which has a lot of big-time talent, guys like Wyatt Davis and Nate Myers are going to be first-round picks, and then they have a bunch of other younger guys that were 4 or 5 stars, top 100 guys coming out of high school. They're starting to play really well. They're starting to they're playing to that talent level, and they're knocking people off the ball. They are opening holes, and Sermon hits it. Sermon, he gets to the hole quickly. He doesn't dance around. He doesn't go east and west. He hits north and south, and that's why he's been successful. He's hitting the holes. The holes have been pretty big, and that's making him successful. He also is a solid pass catcher out of the backfield. He's pretty good hands, and once again, he gets north and south. And when I mention north and south, what makes it, some runners like to kind of see what's there, and if necessarily they'll be better if there's not a hole, because they'll bounce outside, they'll bounce the next hole. A guy that's a real north and south kind of guy he's just going to hit it. If it's not there, more than likely he won't get quite as much because he's just going to hit it. I played back in high school and I was a north-south guy. I just hit it. Break the hole. You're going to hit full speed. You're going to get 10, 15, 20 yards pretty quickly. If there's not a hole there, probably won't get a lot. So it is really, with Trey Sermon's running style, it really was necessary for the offensive line to be playing at a little more elite level than they were early in the season. They now are playing very well. They were knocking Clemson off the ball the entire game. Some talented guys in that Clemson D-line, but they're young, and you could see that more experienced, more veteran offensive line of Ohio State just knocking them back. I think Alabama's defensive line is going to be a little better. And as long as the linebackers for Alabama play at more of an elite level, I think it'll be a little more difficult for them to just keep on knocking the D-line back, opening those holes. And I don't think that Trey Sermon is the type of running back that's going to create something out of nothing. So if Alabama is really able to step on it up front, plug the gaps with the front, do they run a 3-4?
Yes.
Is Alabama? Okay. So if they're able to plug the backs in 3-4 and the linebackers are able to fill, I do think that there will be some issues with Trey Sermon having those kind of yards. If Ohio State does run effectively, if they are able to knock the defensive line off the ball, if the linebackers are not playing well, that is going to be a very long day for Alabama, because at that point, Fields is going to be able to take shots down the field, because you're going to have to bring some of the guys in the back end up to be able to stop the run. And then that will be a very good day for the Ohio State offense. It is a necessity. It is necessary for Alabama's defense to be successful, to be able to be staunch up front and to at least be able to neutralize the effectiveness of the offensive line, because if the offensive line's effective, Trey Sermon will be effective. And if Trey Sermon's effective, the passing game more than likely will be effective. And then the Ohio State offense will have a very good day.
Yeah, Ty, I could not agree more with that last statement that you just made there. I think Ohio State's number one key to winning this game is establishing the run, because that opens up the entirety of the rest of their offense. Just as you said, Bama would have to load the box, and then you leave one-on-one on the outside with those talented receivers, and that gives Justin Fields a chance as well to break, contain, and really hurt you with his legs. Now, who knows how healthy he's going to be. One thing that I thought was interesting in the Clemson game, particularly right after the injury, was anytime he broke contain, he'd maybe scramble for like 2 or 3 yards and then just give himself up, and trying to avoid any type of necessary hits. So, not sure how much those ribs have healed in a week's time. So I really think that those are kind of the two keys to this game from Ohio State's perspective is, number one, establishing the run with Trey Sermon, and number two, letting Justin Fields extend plays with his legs and gain chunk yardage and first downs. On the flip side of that, Bama's defense has got to keep them in third and longs, keep that defense or that offensive line guessing in terms of where the pressure is coming from, and keeping Justin Fields in the pocket. That's what I think Pete Golding and the defense's goal is going to be. Chris, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is, on the flip side, a guy like Najee Harris. What is Ohio State's game plan in trying to stop an elite runner like Najee? We saw what happened in the Notre Dame game. I still feel bad for the guy that he hurdled. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. But I want to know, is their game plan going to be, let's shut down Najee first and then worry about the receiver talent, or let's, just play drop 8 like you mentioned earlier and let maybe Najee run wild?
I just think if they go the Arkansas route, and try to drop 8, that Bama's just going to drive down the field and it'll be death by 1,000 paper cuts. I don't think that, loading up to stop Najee is a good idea when you've got a Heisman winner on the outside and, some pretty other damn good weapons, including Alabama's utilization of the tight end. They do a great job with that as well. But as far as Najee, I just think he's, like you mentioned, the hurdle. He's an elite athlete, and Ohio State's going to key on him big time, and that's just going to open it up for other playmakers on the outside. The amount of yards after contact that Devontae Smith piled up this year is, I think that's going to be the key to Alabama's success. If they go the Arkansas route, like I said, Alabama will simply just suck the life out of them, picking up 5 yards a pop, punching it in when they get down there. And it's going to be a tough task trying to get off the field against them if they go that route.
Yeah, great point. And you mentioned we've talked about a lot of players here so far. Sticking with you, Chris, we've talked about guys like Najee, we've talked about Devontae Smith, and Trey Sermon, Chris Olave, Justin Fields. Give me your player to keep an eye on that maybe not everyone is thinking is a big name on either side of the ball or either team. Who's the guy that is really going to come into the fold in this game and make an impact that maybe people don't suspect?
And for Alabama, it would just be Waddle's health. I mean, if he comes back and has any sort of impact on this game, it could be the tipping of the scales in Alabama's favor to win outright. So, if I had to pick a player that certainly has been off the radar for a couple months now, he's the X factor. I haven't heard if he's definitely playing or not. I know he practiced this week, but if he does, watch out, because that could be a game changer for the Crimson Tide.
Absolutely. And Justin, I want to go to you from that point. And we've talked about Jalen Waddle's health. Now, I want to put yourself in Nick Saban's shoes. Let's say Jalen Waddle comes to you after pregame and says, Coach, I'm 85%, and I want to give it a go. Would you let that happen? Is this purely in Jalen Waddle's, hands in terms of if he plays? And if he does play, what is his impact going to be? Do you think he's going to be used more as a decoy, or is he actually going to, have significant amount of just total plays in the offense?
Well, I think if Nick Saban is approached by Jalen Waddle, 85%, I think you have to give him a shot. I mean, the guy is a game changer. He's probably one of the most electric players in college football today. And it's a shame he got hurt, because there's no telling what he could have done. But yeah, if 85% Jalen Waddle comes to you, that's still a lot better than the majority of the wide receivers in college football today. And he still has a great opportunity to affect the game. If anything, he's going to draw more attention and more coverage. It's going to leave guys open like Devontae. It's going to leave guys open like John Mechie, and then Billingsley. And then, of course, Najee out of the backfield or on a wheel route. So if anything, he's going to have to be accounted for. But yeah, someone that special has got to get on the field. But if Saban has any kind of doubts in his mind that he's not quite ready to go and has an opportunity to re-injure himself, I say sit down. His future is far is more valuable than this one game. We didn't get here off of one player. We got here off the efforts of several players, mainly Devontae, but still. But yeah, I think you got to let him play if he can go, and let it be a situation where you kind of work him in there gradually. Don't just try to put him into the game constantly and try to draw up plays to go to him immediately. Just see what he can do, feel him out, and if he can turn out to be a major factor, man, let it loose.
Yeah, great point there. And something that you mentioned in terms of once Jalen really went down, Devontae really started to hit his stride. It'd be interesting, hindsight 2020, to see if Jalen was healthy the entire season, would Devontae have won the Heisman? I always wonder how that would have played out, just because of the amount of targets that he got. Not to, say anything about their talent levels, but they're just, so incredibly good that it would have been amazing to kind of see how that all played out. Moving into kind of the final segment here, starting with you, Ty, I would love to hear your predictions for this game. Based on all the aspects that we've talked about so far, what do you think are the likelihoods of how this game goes? And if you have it, would love to hear your final score prediction.
Well, being a Bama fan, it's hard to pick against them, I'm really excited. First and foremost, I'm just really excited for this game. This is actually, a lot of people are talking about Clemson versus Alabama. That's kind of what you heard, especially the mainstream media. It seemed to be a foregone conclusion. It was going to be Clemson versus Alabama. I always wanted Ohio State versus Alabama, because I just wanted to see, first of all, something different. And I also thought that Ohio State has a better people currently than Clemson. Well, they proved that in the game by pretty easily beating Clemson. So My prediction, and it's so difficult. You have the best plan prediction. You're like, this is how it's going to go, and then there's so many different things that can happen in a football game that affect the eventual outcome. That I can just be the best prognosticator that I can be. What I'm interested in most in seeing is how much Ohio State's defense can slow down Alabama's offense. How much like I said before, the pass rush can get to Mac Jones. Can they force Mac Jones into some mistakes? That's number one. Number two, can Ohio State run like they were able to run the last game on Clemson? Are they able to run even remotely as effectively against the Alabama front seven? My prediction is I predicted Ohio State to win the national title. I predicted it before the season, and I predicted it once the playoffs got going. So I guess I'm probably not going to change right now. Hold on a minute. Okay. Sorry, someone came in the room. But I'm going to stick to it. I believe that Ohio State will win the game. I think how they're able to win the game is by being able to run better than most teams can run in Alabama, being able to hit the big shots down the field and some explosive plays. I'm going to go on a limb and say that Justin Fields is healthy. If Justin Fields is not healthy, I don't think that Ohio State wins, because the element he brings to the game of being able to run and be able to be a threat in that aspect of the game. Without that threat, it's going to be a lot like what happened to Ohio State versus Clemson last season, and they're unable to pull off the victory there because Fields was hurt. And if they can't run on Alabama, I just think it's going to negatively affect the Ohio State offense, and they won't be able to score enough to keep it up with Alabama. But as long as he's healthy, and I'm going to say he is, I'm going to say he's going to take the necessary amount of shots to get himself going for that game. And I think he's able to run. I think they're able to take some shots on the field, make some plays. I think they're able to run more effectively than most teams. And I also think the defensive line is able to get enough pressure that Mac Jones has a couple errant throws, maybe makes a couple mistakes that he normally wouldn't make. And I would go in the 42-35 range for a victory.
Okay.
That's my guess. So I'm going to go with Ohio State 42-35 victory.
Love it. Chris, to you, what are some of your predictions here? And if you have a final score, let's hear it.
All right. Yeah, I think that it's going to take a Herculean effort from Justin Fields. And, you look back at elite athletes that have played out of their mind in the national championship game. Deshaun Watson driving Clemson down the field for the win. Vince Young to the corner of the Rose Bowl end zone against SC. That's what it's going to take out of Fields. And we got that last time against Clemson. That was as soon as he got up after getting his rib cage blasted in and threw a touchdown pass, I was like, there's no way that Ohio State's losing this game. Unfortunately, he's going to have to repeat that same exact effort if they want to beat Alabama. This is just that kind of a stage and against that kind of a team. I'm interested to see how Ohio State's offense decides to operate. Do they run off the play with a couple seconds left on the clock and keep Bama's offense or defense guessing like they did against Clemson? Or do they try to mimic what Ole Miss did against Bama and just go with tempo and just try to keep Bama off balance? I think that, if Fields is healthy and they're operating clicking on all cylinders, that they can do something like that. And that's what it's going to take. I'm still going to go with Alabama to get this victory. I just think it's foolish to pick against them at this point. But, no matter what, I think we're getting an awesome national championship game, one of the more anticipated ones in recent memory. And probably the last team possessing the ball is going to come out with a victory. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go 48-42 Alabama.
Wow. Okay, great. So we've got two guys now that at least have Ohio State covering the spread,
No doubt.
which I think is definitely interesting there. Also, something that you both mentioned is Justin Fields' health. I think that's going to be tremendous. Justin, you're up, man. Let's hear your kind of predictions and how you think the game's going to go.
First of all, I think it's going to be a shootout. There is no way conceivable that it's not. I don't see Pete Golden all of a sudden having an epiphany and correcting all the troubles he's had the past 2 years. I know Tyrone Prothro was on my show last week, and he predicted us to win 35-0. As much as I'd love to see that, that's not going to happen here. The biggest thing is for each team is don't give the other team anything. Limit your mistakes. and play within your game. One thing I would love to see is you mentioned earlier about difference makers. This is a game where I really want to see Dylan Moses step up. He hasn't been playing, up to Dylan Moses' standard the entire year. This is a game where, as a senior, as a leader, as a big name, where he's really got to step up. He's the guy who's the quarterback of that defense and really can determine how that flow goes. But it's I just see it going back and forth, lots of points, and I think the team with the ball at the end is going to be the winner. Uh, Man, it's just really tough for me, but I feel like Alabama's going to win 51-48. I don't think they cover, but
Gotcha.
so. But yeah, that's how I see it playing out. I think we're going to have a battle of the ages, and if it's any different, I would be shocked.
Yeah, so any of our listeners out there, as you can tell by our expert panelists, go put money on Ohio State to cover this game if you have anything left. But
Bet the over.
yeah, and bet the over. But to give my kind of prediction here, I really think it's going to come down to the secondary for both these teams. As I was evaluating both these teams, they kind of remind me a lot of each other in a weird way in terms of what they're really good at and what they lack or what they've been not so successful with this season. I think it's going to come down to the secondary for both teams. Who can get that one key stop when it's needed? That was really what Bama got against Ole Miss to win that game. What Bama got against Florida to win that game. But overall, both secondaries, have struggled this year. I'm interested to see how, the cornerback play is, guys with like Josh Joe, Patrick Surtain against both receivers, and how Devontae does and Jalen and all of that stuff. But in my mind, how I kind of think things are going to go is I just don't believe that Justin Fields is going to be 100%. I don't think he's going to be a factor in the run game. I think that's going to lead towards Bama's front seven, dominating more towards the middle of the second half and beyond. I think Bama pulls away late, maybe gets a score to go up 10-13 or something like that. And Ohio State just can't get anything else on the board. So I'm going to go Bama to win, and I'm going to go 42-24, the final.
Wow.
So guys, it's been great. Starting with you, Chris, where can people keep up with you on social media and kind of continue the conversation as we head into tomorrow night?
Sure. Like you mentioned, I'm a writer for West Coast College Football, so I got a bunch of articles up on there. Twitter at Nolecore, Nolecore, and SouthernGentlemanSports.com.
Awesome. Justin, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Tuesday nights at the Riley and Constant Show, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're an Alabama fan, this is for you. But if you're a fan of nonsense with a little bit of sports mixed in, we're definitely worth checking out. I'm on Twitter at JustinRiley7, on Instagram at JustinRiley_7. So any of those avenues, definitely reach out to me. Be sure and tune in for this Tuesday as we have our recap of the national title show. We'll have some guests who will be named later. And from what I understand, it's going to be some pretty big guests. If you're an Alabama fan, definitely want to tune into this. But yeah, looking forward to the game. Looking forward to what happens after.
And lastly, but not least, Ty, where can people find you on social media and kind of continue the conversation with you beyond your outlandish pick to take Ohio State in tomorrow night's game?
You'll see. My outlandish pick will be right. No, it's good. You can check me out at the Turner Cast. Like he said, I have a show, the Turner Show. It's on Monday nights, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, obviously. I go over the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and you can check me out there. And I'm willing to bicker all day on Twitter if you want to. So hit me up at the Turner Cast. Awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and really excited for tomorrow night's game. Obviously, if you want to continue the conversation with the Sportscast crew, you can follow us on Twitter at the Sportscast1 and visit us on our website, thesportscast.net. But make sure to check out our show schedules that Ty and Justin talked about over the next week or so. A lot of great content coming after this national title game, and obviously head over to everything that Chris mentioned as well to to check out his contributions. So again, this is Nick signing out, and hope everyone has a great one and enjoys the national championship tomorrow. See you guys.